Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. I'm back with another Tower of God video, and this time I'm trying to explain something that is quite difficult, and for the majority of this I'm going to be using Balm as my example along with the characters who we have met so far. So I want to get three things out of the way. Shinsu and skills, basically, that's what I want to get out of the way. I'm going to explain the two in a little bit of a reference using Bam. Obviously, Bam is most likely the most favored character by anybody in the story because of how much of development he has. He's most probably the obvious person for you to go for. The next person I could describe when it comes to the use of Shinsu and techniques is Kun Ran or Kun Aguero, Agnes and Ra. They are another sort of situation on that when it comes to usage of Shinsu techniques. Following this here, there is the ability to augment one's body with Shinsu, which would be Kun Ran, Enderosi, and Anak Jahad, who I would explain about when I'm going through it. And the last thing is those who have no Shinsu. Those who are merely training their bodies and using natural skill to get stronger. That would fall into a class where we're going to get Shibisu, right? And that is just the reality of where I am going to explain everything. Now, in the tower, people use Shinsu and people use skills. Skills are generally your combat hand-to-hand abilities, your usage of weapons. Those are skills. However, your skills can be augmented with Shinsu. Now, augmenting your skills with Shinsu would be something like Calavan's Essence of Bravery. Essence of Bravery is a form of Shinsu Blessing. Now, Shinsu Blessing is something that we will get into a little bit down the line when we discuss the 10 Great Families and Balm. It's going to be the majority of my video, so I'm actually going to hold it off till the end of it. And it is quite complicated to explain, which is why I've redone this video more than once already. So let's go through with the next part. So when it comes to the use of Shinsu for enhancement, we have Hats, we have Anak, and we have Enderosi. Now, Enderosi does use Shinsu as an attack form, as in she manipulates the Shinsu with a pure Shinsu technique and not with just skill. So when you're talking about a skill, a Shinsu skill is something like hardening your body so that you can take a harder blow. Now that is an augmented ability. Your ability to defend yourself is basically using your arms as defenses, and then all of a sudden you enhance your arm with the strength of Shinsu so that it's more dense, and when a sword hits it, it's now like it's hitting a shield. That's because you made your arm that dense. Now when it comes to this here, we've seen another type of environmental technique similar, which is both from Rak and from the Name Hunt Station. Now on the Name Hunt Station we had the Earthman and we had the Iron Man, Hasesis, and I'm forgetting his brother's name. But nonetheless, they use Shinsu to pull it into their body and change their densities. And when they change their densities, they change their elemental structure. So they go from being flesh and blood to being dirt humans or being iron humans. And that is what they did in the story. So that is the reality behind what happens with the use of Shinsu blessings and Shinsu techniques. Sorry, no, not blessings. Shinsu and Shinsu techniques. Now, it's their natural technique to change their body's density. However, it has to use Shinsu. So their ability to change from water to earth to steel to wind or whatever it is requires Shinsu. Therefore, Shinsu is a key point in their abilities, and that is something that you should keep a very keen mind on. Now, for Rak, on the other hand, his is more of a technique. He can naturally connect and use the environment. He has the ability to manipulate it. We learned this from Kun Edwan on the Hidden Floor. So when he told us about this, basically the Ancient One's descendants have the ability to manipulate natural elements. And when they are manipulating a natural element, the Shinsu flows through them and augments their skill. Now, this is something different from what the others did. When they augment the skill like this, they get more power. They get more usability out of it. if Rock just eats rocks, he can't use his skill. However, he needs to have enough Shinsu in order for it to be effective in usage. For example, if Rock had no Shinsu built up and he decided he wanted to make a shield, his shield would be of a very low quality. It would just be the rocks in his area that he is physically in contact with, or the rocks from within him that make the shield. So that is the difference between a skill and the Shinsu technique itself, pure Shinsu techniques. Alright, let's get on to the next part of this whole story, those who have no Shinsu techniques and cannot use Shinsu. Now, in Shibisu's case, he can't augment himself with Shinsu, so he's not going to get stronger using Shinsu, so he can't get a stronger body, he can't get faster using Shinsu. However, he trains against an extreme amount of pressure all the time to maintain his body's fluidity. And he also gets stronger and stronger each time by training like this. Basically, if you want to work it out to another show, this is something closer to a Dragon Ball analogy. When the pressure increases, it's like the gravity on you is increasing, gravity training, and he just keeps getting stronger in his flight going up the tower. Now, most regulars will train for a period on a floor to be able to move up to the next floor so they can get used to the pressure on that floor when they're going to fight. The Shinsu pressure increases to the point that broad blades and heavy weapons don't move fluidly enough in their densities. So the spears that they have are actually specially designed so that it can cut through Shinsu and that it doesn't end up just sinking down after 5 meters, right? I'm using meters because metric is my native measuring system. I don't use imperial, I'm not from the US, unfortunately. So nonetheless, here's the next thing for you to know about everything else that comes in. When a person is using skills in Shinsu, they're basically bogged down by this pressure way more than a person who can actually use Shinsu, because they'll absorb some of the Shinsu around them, reducing the pressure slightly. This is an active process and it does tire out the body. So in terms of those who have no Shinsu and those who have Shinsu, this is kind of a give and take. They get powers for the ability to reduce their stamina. And the other way around, those guys who don't have any Shinsu abilities gain more stamina because of their high density training, and they end up being able to get stronger a lot faster through this method. Whew. Okay, and last but not least, we have those blessed with Shinsu. Now, Jinsung Ha is an example. His blessing of Shinsu gave him a very strong body. It also allowed him to use Shinsu to a magnificent amount. Now, his techniques are all based on Shinsu. He pulls in Shinsu and he creates a vacuum so that he can create an explosion similar to Yuri's nuclear punch. And that is using his skill to manipulate the Shinsu around him. Although this is not a Shinsu skill, his skill is his physical combat. And due to his speed and power, he causes the Shinsu to actually feel a lower density and flood into an area. And when it floods, it explodes. That's the same thing we've seen Yuri do for her nuclear punch. And that is the reality behind it. The next thing to note on this same topic is we get guys like Calavan. Calavan is actually using the blessing of Shinsu all the time through the essence of bravery. What it does is it reduces the pressure on his body, allowing him to express a far greater amount of strength. And next what it does is it allows a greater amount of Shinsu to be pushed towards his objective. So if you want to take it in a simple analogy, it's like you are a cup of water, and in order for you to be able to fill somebody who needs a liter of water, you need to keep pouring into the cup, and once you empty the cup you have to pour again, and that's the only way the cup is going to keep getting full. However, in terms of guys like Jinsung Ha and Calavan, it's like they have a cup with a reservoir on the side, and the reservoir is a pipe. So when they drink from the cup, the reservoir is slowly filling it back up. So they lose and they gain at the same time. And then you get guys like Bam. Bam is a unique situation. He has the greatest blessing of Shinsu. For him, it's like he's trying to drink water out of a lake. He has the ability to drink all he wants because it's all perfectly clean and purified, and he doesn't have to worry about using a glass. If he uses a glass, the glass is just there, and he can just keep putting more glasses there anytime he wants, but it makes no difference because he can just drink it. That is the reality of Bam. Bam has that type of an affinity towards Shinsu. And with his training with with Hansang Yu, he's learned to maximize this ability. So remember, like I said, you can put as many cups as you want. So Hansang Yu taught him, if you go with a bucket and you start swinging it in the water, you now will have a far bigger container filled with water. But in order to get to this big container, you need to start off with a small container, a small little folded bucket that's this crunchy little plastic. And then as you start moving it around, it's just going to keep getting bigger and expanding outwards, and it'll get bigger and bigger until you have enough to compete with the high rankers. So your cup will be equal to theirs, even though you don't really have such a big cup. You may have only a shot glass, but because you manage to stretch your material, you have that ability to hold that much of power. But it is dangerous and it is risky for him to do it because irregulars generally will be able to counteract this type of action. They have the access to skills like Shinsu Black Hole Sphere, which will allow them to destroy Shinsu. So Bam's advantage is only provided he's fighting someone like Caravan, White, any one of the regular individuals in the tower. But the moment you have people like Gustang, Yurik Mazino, and Ryu, his advantage disappears, because they can use irregular forms of Shinsu, which isn't actually Shinsu. It's another skill altogether that is innate to themselves. It's what gives them the ability to use the Shinsu of the tower without contracts. So there is a warning on the blessing of Shinsu. Ooh. Sorry for that little pause. But nonetheless, that is the reality of Shinsu. Now, techniques on the other hand are things like Bam's martial arts. Bam is unique in the fact that he can pick up any technique the moment he's hit with it. Shinsu as well, if there's a technique used on it, he will pick it up. I believe that's the only reason why he hasn't used the shadow style Shinsu of, what was his name? Not Paragraph. I'm forgetting. That's all within the workshop. The guy who becomes their final opponent. I just read his name and now I forgot it already. That's how little he means to me in my head. Refleo. Sorry about that. It really slips my mind. So when Refleo used that ability is just a pure Shinsu skill. It's Shinsu without the real manipulation of it. It does have some manipulation, but it's not enough to count as a technique. And that's why when it hit Bam, it was just these irregular waves of Shinsu. So Bam couldn't really copy it. He'd need more of a experience with it or proper combat against it to actually copy it effectively. So sorry, my head is like really starting to hurt from the high amounts of pressure I'm putting on myself to make the episode, because this is a very difficult topic overall. So skills on their own are your abilities as an actual individual. So if you remove Shinsu from the tower, if they can still do it, then that is a skill they have. Now, for example, if you remove Shinsu from the floor of death, which happened literally, any skill they can use is not really reliant on Shinsu, except for the fact that Bam was using Shinsu because he had a administrator's power. The Thorn plus the Souls is what gave him that ability. Okay, I'm not really going to be able to give you a lot more on this entire topic, so I'm going to have to call it here, unfortunately. This is all I really have on this topic. It is a very, very vast topic, and I most probably will try and augment it a little bit in the future. I hope that you all do enjoy, and I will catch you all in the next one.